Saitama finally revealed his true power to the second strongest hero on Earth. The cover of this epic chapter features a gorgeously dressed Fubuki decked out in light fur and a fancy dress, acting her part as a high-class lady. Meanwhile, Saitama and Genos are placed at the bottom of the image, dressed as old-style gangsters with a Tommy gun ready to defend her honor. This chapter, titled The Supernatural and Risks, begins inside the expensive hero apartment complex with a young couple talking about how monster disasters hit an all-time high this month. In the background, we see many other residents enjoying their meals and being served. There's even a piano in the corner for them. One thing we can criticize is the view. There's not much to look at really. The couple seem fine discussing how people are being attacked by monsters and how things are being destroyed because of how safe they feel within this complex. In fact, this man probably thinks he's already subscribed to Plot Armor with notifications on, saying something like, "We're perfectly safe in here." He'll be proven very, very wrong pretty soon, but for now, they can enjoy cafes and restaurants along with an upcoming mall that is being built for the residents. From the way the man describes it, there would be no need to go anywhere else. Everything would be within walking distance inside the complex for those who can afford it. He even says as much, telling the woman, "Only a select few of us get to live here." She responds with a smile, saying that it's good his father is part of the government, and he'll encourages that mindset, telling her it's good she decided to date him, which she'll regret in a second because as she laughs, taking a sip from her drink, she immediately notices something's wrong. With the woman's cup shaking, the two begin to worry that it might be an earthquake, but the man says that's impossible, since the entire facility was already made with that in mind. He even accuses her of shaking rather than believing that anything could penetrate the amazing apartment complex he has so much faith in. With that, he somehow convinces her that it is nothing and that they should just appreciate where they live and enjoy it. But it's not long before the entire restaurant begins to shake. Dishes fly around, tables flip over, and general panic fills the room. They can't deny the shaking is real, but they have no clue what's causing it, still convinced it is something like an earthquake. Meanwhile, the security staff are trying to find the cause and swiftly confirm it to be the basement of building number 4, which is the same place where the experimental monster containment is located. But more importantly, it is exactly where Saitama is right now. But because of the monsters being held there, the security believe that one or more have escaped and are causing this massive trembling. That's when we cut back to Tatsumaki in full Esper mode. She surrounded herself with an aura to defend against and attack the Tsukuyomi man, while also trying to get Psychos, who was still strapped into her chair. But seeing him struggle to not be blown back by the massive output that Tatsumaki is letting flow really doesn't convince me he could protect someone else. Unfortunately for him, with his eyes bulging, he realizes his telekinetic output can't really match her, only caring to admit that he is at a slight disadvantage. He's probably trying to keep his ego intact. Barely seeming affected, Tatsumaki taunts the man, even calling him poor little guinea pig. Getting back to the Tsukuyomi member, his neck veins bulging. He's obviously irritated that she thinks so little of him. But seeing him struggle that much to keep up with Tatsumaki kind of proves her point. Meanwhile, Fubuki, who panicked when she saw Saitama fall into the mini abyss, is trying to pull the crack in the ground apart to get to him, admitting that she needs his help right now. She has no doubt that he has survived both the fall and whatever monsters were down there. Suddenly, a wave of something washes over her and she falls flat on her face. Fubuki's crew rushes to her aid, with Tatsumaki looking both shocked and confused at her sister's sudden collapse. The Tsukuyomi Psycho explains that he broke a capsule full of sleep medicine inside Fubuki using his abilities. He follows that up with the threat of breaking one with a deadly poison next. At that, Tatsumaki goes full rage mode, ready to rip him limb from limb. No one threatens her, and no one hurts her little sister. To make matters worse, the man explains that he slipped the capsules into Fubuki's daily beauty supplements to get it into her system. Mostly sedated, Fubuki has enough energy to ask how he did it. Still covered in shadows, Tatsumaki realizes there must be a traitor among the people that Fubuki has contact with, whether it be the manufacturer, distributor, or one of her loyal members. Tatsumaki doesn't know them, and certainly doesn't trust them. She uses her power to push the group members away from Fubuki, and the Tsukuyomi man, satisfied that he's gotten his point across, tries to use Fubuki as leverage. Tatsumaki pretends to be compliant, crossing her arms and being quiet, even lowering her telekinetic output to a more natural level. Thinking he now has complete control over the situation, the man begins to speak to her condescendingly. As he fixes his tie, he decides she needs to be made easier to carry, as if she's not 4'7" or something. Boasting that she couldn't see how this would turn out despite her abilities, he begins to twist Tatsumaki's body in unnatural ways. Her legs face frontward while her body is bent back, and her spine is treated more like jelly than bone. According to him, natural psychics lack balance, possibly hinting at the fact that they don't need to prepare for multiple types of situations since they're born with a gift and learn it on their own, which will probably come back up later on. Fubuki may be unable to move, but she can still scream out for Tatsumaki and the position she's been put in thanks to her. Pointing his fingers like a gun again, the man reveals his belief that natural psychics are a defective species that needs to go extinct. He breaks the door mechanism behind him, preparing to take these psychics with him, leaving the escaped monsters to attack the people left behind. These monsters are demon-level threats whose rampage the artificial psychic intends to use to cover his own tracks. As the doors slide open, the monsters become restless, already voicing their need to come out. He easily lifts Psychos with the chair, as well as Tatsumaki and Fubuki. Fubuki's group members can't help but panic at the sight, wanting to help, but they're all powerless against this level of foe. And that's when one of their own members, a new guy who had joined not too long ago, floats up to meet the Tsukuyomi member and the girls. He was the cause of the betrayal, not the members who had been with Fubuki all along. As he floats, his hair is lifted by the wind, and a large scar like the one his colleague has is revealed, proving he also had surgery done to gain psychic powers. They prepare to leave, and the monsters grow ever closer, growling and stalking up the stairs. The Hero Association staff rushes to close the doors and keep the cages shut, but the exit won't open. If they can't keep the monsters out, they'll be doomed to fight or be eaten. With the sounds getting closer and closer, fear fills the room, and darkness engulfs their hearts as they expect the worst. But arriving at the perfect moment, Saitama slams his way through the crowd of monsters, ripping them into pieces with no more than a punch. The people in the room fall backwards, not expecting such a display, while Saitama is covered in gunk and guts, looking bored and unhappy with this turn of events. The Tsukuyomi members are now stunned and unable to leave, with Fubuki looking beyond happy to see Saitama again. Even her group is surprised and probably impressed by him. Saitama then falls right after breaking out. That distraction is enough for Tatsumaki to find the capsule implanted in Fubuki's body, saying as much as she showed off her renewed confidence, even breaking out of that pretzel hold, revealing that she was just going along with his nonsense until she could remove the danger. As soon as he sees Tatsumaki prepared to attack, he shifts his focus to Fubuki, readying the poison he had in her. Meanwhile, Tatsumaki explains that what she is going to do next will hurt, and that Fubuki can see it as a punishment for her bad choices. The clueless Tsukuyomi member tries to trigger the poison capsule, but Tatsumaki already has it under control. Having found its location, she twisted it into a fine needle shape, wringing it out and making it thinner than a strand of hair, so she could safely extract it from her sister's body. Tatsumaki also figured out how to find it by copying the man's wavelength and tracing it back to whatever was connected to his specific abilities. In a flash, the needle was pulled from Fubuki's side and completely removed from her body. And yeah, despite its size, it seemed pretty painful. But Tatsumaki's not done. She sends the needle-shaped capsule towards him, aiming to inject the poison into his body. He tries to block, but both hands are pierced, and it ultimately goes through his eye. As he bleeds and suffers from the pain of it, Tatsumaki is surprised he hasn't already died. She even wonders if he has some sort of resistance to it. Tatsumaki gets very close, unnecessarily so, telling him that she's going to wring out everything he knows about the Tsukuyomi organization. And we can guess that it is meant to reference the actual wringing she has done in the past. Pieces of the walls and ceiling crumble as Tatsumaki holds him in her grasp. And in no time at all, she uses the broken pieces to create a spherical prison, holding the member of Tsukuyomi inside it. The other one, who had infiltrated Fubuki's group, thinks he is safe and tries to flee, but Tatsumaki slams him against the wall before he can get very far. She brings the sphere down along with the two psychics and lets out a confident huff at a job well done. Fubuki still feeling the pain from the needle being pulled out, but is not as bad as what the capsule would have done. We then get a shot of the entire area, and the people gathered together were still in shock. But even so, they begin to cheer at being out of danger and finally safe again. Once they regain their calm, they start to run towards Fubuki and check her injuries. However, now that everything's resolved, they've got a lot of complaints and questions. But before Fubuki can answer anything, Tatsumaki shouts, "Shut it!" as loud as she can. Her fierce demeanor from before has returned, but now it is aimed at Fubuki's group and she tells them to get lost, since it has nothing to do with them. Afterwards, Tatsumaki begins scolding her sister for her poor judgment and surrounding herself with people who can't be trusted. Not only that, but she calls them riffraff who would let the enemy take advantage of her. Without missing a beat, Tatsumaki orders Fubuki to cut ties with them so that nothing like that could ever happen again. But Tatsumaki's true thoughts are then revealed. I can't protect them all. She doesn't want to risk her sister being hurt if one of her group members is injured or killed in the future. She also has little faith in Fubuki being able to take care of them on her own, seeing as she had to be saved from death just now. The members all plead with Tatsumaki to reconsider. Showing their loyalty to Fubuki, they even offer to try and work on their faults and be better in the future. But Tatsumaki is having none of it, blaming them entirely for what just happened. Tatsumaki is being a bit unreasonable, but perhaps it is because she feels partially to blame too. Tatsumaki puts on her villain mask and threatens to cut ties for them if they won't do it by choice. Her hair beginning to stand up as evidence of her increasing power. With a blank look, she tells them she'll hurt them just enough to not kill them, but to ensure they can't ever return to hero work afterwards. With Fubuki still suffering from the sleeping dose earlier and the pain in her side, she can't do much except for beg for her sister to spare them while the group looks on in fear. But then it happens. Tatsumaki's outstretched arm is firmly grabbed by Saitama, who had been quiet up until now. With earth-shattering tension, the two look at each other. Tatsumaki's irritation has reached a whole new level. What? She asks with a cutting glare. With a darkened expression, Saitama admits that these sisters are just like each other. Then taking on a more normal look, he continues by telling Tatsumaki that she's going too far with her lecture, and that heroes shouldn't be fighting each other. But when Tatsumaki gets this angry, the only people she will listen to are the strongest, so Saitama will need to prove himself. As always, I am SliceOfOtaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.